Can you hear me?
Yep, you are here.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, still can.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock and it doesn't look like we have a quorum yet. So I think we're going to need to wait a minute, see if we get at least one more person to show up. I know that Candy and Zach will not be here tonight. So we're just waiting to see if we get at least one more so that we can get started. Hey, Robin, glad you could join us.
Yeah, did you think I better?
I was getting a little worried. So
No, don't.
You're in charge tonight since Candy's not going to be here, and we've got 4. So feel free to kick it off whenever you're ready.
Okay, so it's March 24th. This is Robin Anderson, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Midvale Planning Commission to order. I've been asked by Midvale City staff to read the following. This meeting will be an electronic meeting without a physical location pursuant to the Utah Code 52-4-207 as amended by HB 5002. Vice Chair Robin Anderson, as Vice Chair of the Midvale City Planning and Zoning Commission, hereby makes the determination that conducting the meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at another location. This determination is based upon the fact that the city is unable to ensure compliance with the guidelines and public health protocols mandated by the state's current risk phase. As restrictions limiting public gatherings occur across the state, Midvale City wants to ensure everyone interested in participating in Planning Commission meetings can do so. Public comments are read into the record by city staff during the public hearings portion of the meeting. If you would like to make a public comment, please send an email to Alex Murphy at amurphy@midvale.com. When commenting, please limit your comments to 400 words, equivalent of 3 minutes. Include your first and last name. Include your city of residence. Include the name of the agenda item so city staff know when you want your public comment to be read into the record. City staff will read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes. Your input is important to us, so please keep your comments concise. Kate, would you take roll call?
Yes. Vice Chair Anderson.
Right here.
Commissioner Costello.
Here.
Commissioner Snow. I don't know if he's on yet. So I guess doesn't look like he has. Commissioner
Here.
and Commissioner Erickson.
Here.
And then
I'm gonna
Chair
grab
Tippett.
my phone and see if Dustin's in.
Okay. But it looks like Chair Tippett and Commissioner Smallwood are both excused tonight.
Okay, thanks, Kate.
Mhm.
I haven't heard from Dustin. Usually I can text him if nobody's heard anything, have they?
Hey, nope, he has not said anything to me today.
Okay. So, before we begin agenda item number 1 with the public hearing portion of the meeting, I'd like to proceed with the first item on the agenda, review and approval of the minutes of March 10th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody looked at that? And do you have?
Yeah,
And you were awake through the whole thing, all the minutes? Okay, great. Are there any corrections that need to be made?
Not that I could see.
no,
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 10th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March of what Robin just said.
10th?
March 10th, the number left me.
and I'll second it.
Kate, do we have to have a roll call on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Costello,
Yes,
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing if I can get a hold of Dustin. We'll now move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. To keep the meeting as orderly as possible, I will ask that everyone in the Zoom meeting mute themselves when not speaking. This makes it easier for everyone to hear and to transcribe the meeting in preparation of the minutes. I'd also ask that the applicants state their name for the record before speaking or answering questions. For this meeting, the process for the item shall proceed as follows. Number 1, I'll introduce the item. Number 2, followed by a presentation by staff. Number 3, the attorney's office will provide some information on the Planning Commission's role for the item. Number 4, the applicant will be allowed an opportunity to present. And number 5, I'll open the public hearing. Number 6, the public hearing will be closed after a motion. Number 7, the commission will have an additional discussion. I'll then ask the commission for action. We'll take a vote and then announce the decision. With that, we'll jump into the action item. So this is action item number 2, public hearing for 532-568 East Fort Union Boulevard. It's a rezone from SF-1
Duplex overlay.
yeah, due and 7200 south to multi-unit, is that right? MU 7200 south plus condition use permit, small scale master plan and preliminary subdivision for a 17-unit master plan development. John Nelson of Realty Path LLC and John Thornton, Salt Lake City Construction are the applicants. The property owners are Kent Crawford and Taylor Dalen Varga and William Alex Shaw. Jason Binks, as a senior planner, will present for staff.
Hello, commissioners. This is Jason. I'll be presenting this. I see that John Thornton is in the gallery, so the applicant is here too. So this is this has many components. This has a rezone, a conditional use with some other things, and then a preliminary subdivision plat. So at the end for your motions, I'll make sure to split these up and walk you through this. But so there's a lot of components and we'll just get through it together. So the applicant, again, John Thornton, this is for a rezone and a proposed 17-unit multifamily subdivision. And for this application, we sent out notification, public notification to about 61 property owners within 300 feet. And we do have a comment that I believe was signed by several neighbors, and we'll get to that as well. So here's your applications. Tonight, for approval by the Planning Commission is going to be the conditional use for the 17 units, and that's accompanied with a small scale master plan and preliminary site plan. And then also tonight for your recommendation to City Council will be the rezone and then the preliminary subdivision plat, and I'll address each one of those as we go through. Here we are at 532 Fort Union Boulevard, in between 525 East and 585 East. There's 7 parcels here, and they take up about 80% of the city block. There's 2 frontages then, the one on the primary corridor, Fort Union, and then on this local street here, 525 East. There's 4 existing single-family dwellings that will be demolished for this project and then replaced with 17 3-story units. So 3 parcels, but among those, 7 parcels, but there's 3 owners of those 7 parcels. Let's take a look at the zoning map. So if you can take these parcels in blue, and here they are represented on this zoning map. There's 5 parcels that need to be rezoned. And right now they're single family dwelling. So like everything here to the south. And then this hashed pink area is the Fort Union or the 7200 South overlay all the way along Fort Union. So to the east of this proposal and to the west of this proposal is already mixed use zoning. So this would be asking for mixed use across these 5 parcels. And the 7200 overlay will still exist, but the applicant is recommending that you provide a recommendation of approval to the City Council to rezone this so that it's all pink, which is mixed use along here. You can also see there's mixed use farther along 7200 South, and then a little bit of regional commercial there as you get toward the shops on the east. Incidentally, this is called the East Gateway area, and the East Gateway area anticipates a lot of rezone proposals, and it does encourage rezoning to these higher intensity uses. So for rezoning, the general plan requires that the Planning Commission and subsequently the City Council find, and then the applicant has to prove that one of these conditions is met for a rezone. After looking at the application, we believe as a staff that number 3 certainly pertains, so that the land in the surrounding environs has changed radically in the last 10 to 15 years, and that there is a changed character of the area, and a rezone is reasonable at this time. Here's the East Gateway opportunity area that kind of stretches across these parcels. There's 7 goals. Now the general plan talks about the goals and the purposes for the East Gateway opportunity area, but these are the 7 goals that they list, and we think that this rezone proposal meets several of these, but particularly number 1, where the goal is for higher density housing. And this subdivision is replacing 4 homes with 17 and single and 2-story homes with 3-story homes. So the density goes from 4 to 17. And then also number 4, where the general plan calls out along 7200 where they want, more urban and higher density design standards along this area. Here's the plat. It's not as easy to see or visualize as a site plan, so I'll get to the site plan here shortly. But there are going to be 17 units through 4 different structures. So you see those 4 different structures broken there across that those 7 parcels. Each individual lot will be for sale like a townhome, and then the rest of the areas will be common areas shared through a homeowners association. And there is a shared access 20-foot wide through the property So they'll enter on 525 East. And then here to the west is Lim Jewelers. And there is an existing shared access agreement between these properties. So there's two different ways to get into these homes. Let's look at the site plan though. It's a little bit easier to see. So there's your 17 lots and your shared access through it. You've got different guest parking areas throughout. Each one of these is 3 stories with a 2-car garage. There's 8 additional guest parking spaces. There's the 50% open space that is met. There are some amenity areas along the south. There's a dog walking area, barbecue, picnic area. And then there's a pedestrian connection through the entire thing, a sidewalk. Sidewalk connects them, and then the sidewalk to the amenity areas, and then all the way around the entire unit. So here's a couple tables that I've cut out so you can see we're accounting for all the different spaces there. Since these all kind of look the same, what I've done is just take a few of the facades or the elevations to show you kind of what we're looking at. If we go back and look at this block of 5, these are the elevations that I'm showing you. So this is the side that faces that shared driveway with the ground floor, 2-car garages and 2 floors above it. This would then be from the east. This is looking along Fort Union. The front doors are on the frontage, but they're recessed in here, so they're facing east and west, but straight on, you can't see them because they're at a 90-degree. And then obviously this is the remaining side from the west. Here's another unit just to show you that it's very similar. This is another one of the buildings, similar kind of style with the structural material facades. Here's the floor plans. Then there's 2 different home products that they're proposing, a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom. For the 2-bedroom units, this is the ground floor, so the 2-car garage, a small landing, and then you get to the 2nd floor where the living area and the kitchen is, and then the upper, and there's a bedroom and a master bedroom on the 3rd floor. And then for the 3-bedroom, this is the ground floor with the 2-car garage, kitchen and living space here with 2 bedrooms. And then the 3rd floor entirely is the master bedroom suite. So that's the 3-bedroom layout. It's a nice landscape picture here with the colors. What we look for landscaping is that there's enough area, that it's adequately, it has adequate species, different kinds of species, vegetation, different types, especially the street trees, and they do meet the street tree requirements. This is going to provide a really good buffer against that primary corridor. Parking areas are landscaped, and then the amenity areas to the south are nicely landscaped. You can probably see the pedestrian connections here a little bit better on the color, so you can see the sidewalk going all the way. And then on 7200, we have a requirement from the city that they dedicate part of the adjacent land against the road so that we can build a 10-foot wide sidewalk. And the image or the goal is that all of 7200 South at some point in the future will have those really nice wide 10-foot wide sidewalks as new development comes through and they develop or redevelop these areas. So I wanted to show you this. All the planners do this. This is just kind of what I do, is throw all the requirements into a table. It kind of shows you the rigor behind our staff reports. This is all spoken to mostly in the staff report. And the highlighted yellow areas are ones that we take care of with conditions. And because these yellow areas don't meet, I'll speak to them real quick. Like I said, it has 2 frontages. This development, one along 7200 South and one along 525 East. The frontage along 525 East right now, there is no front door within 3 feet of that facade. So one of the conditions is to require that per code. The next yellow area is just to define a percentage of the evergreens. Evergreens are a lot more drought resistant. They stay green in the wintertime. So a nice percentage of evergreen makes the overall development look really good. And then the open space is already met with 50% open space. We're just asking that they define the actual improved areas. So that's just a number on any subsequent plans. So with all that, let's get to the conditions. Again, we're breaking these up into different motions. So for the conditional use, the small scale master plan, the preliminary site plan, the first two are very standard. And then the third one is taking into consideration those areas that were yellow, and then a couple other things that we generally put in, most of them. Nothing very strange here. This is for the plat itself. Again, all 5 of these conditions are standard. There's nothing unique that we're asking for this plat. So here we are at the recommended motions. I have a slide for each one of these. 3 different motions. You're going to take a vote, roll call for the rezone, and then these kind of flow. So once we're done with the rezone, we'll go to the conditional use and then the preliminary plat. And at this point, before we go to the motions, I want to turn this over to Garrett so city attorney can maybe explain this a little bit better for you.
By the way, Dustin's trying to log in.
Okay. Garrett, if you're there, you might be muted.
Sorry about that. So tonight we're going to be making 3 different types of motions. So the first is going to be a legislative decision. For this rezone, you're going to need to determine whether or not there's those findings that support a rezone. But because it's a legislative decision that you're making a recommendation to the city council for, this is where you have a lot more flexibility to consider what would be appropriate. The next 2 after that will be administrative decisions. So you're going to be making sure that they meet the requirements of the statute. And if they do, you'll need to approve those. If there are things that need to be mitigated, you can highlight those and approve that with conditions. If there are things that cannot be mitigated, then you can deny it. I think when we get to the motions after the discussion, we'll slow things down and we'll take each motion individually and just remind you what decision you're making at that time. Thank you.
Unless you have questions, John Thornton is available as the applicant. If there's any questions he can answer for you.
Hey, Chair, can I chime in really quick? This is Alex. It took me until Jason was presenting this to realize I misled him on one thing, and that's the general plan section that we're dealing with. So he referenced the East Gateway area. This is actually in the 7200 South Opportunity area, which has slightly different land use goals, but they don't change our recommendation. And let me, Jason, if you let me share my screen really quick.
Okay. Let's see if I can in slideshow here.
Here, I'll just take it over from you. So this is pulled straight out of the general plan, the future land use goals for the 7200 South Opportunity area, which is where we are, rather than the East Gateway Opportunity area. Is support retail and office uses west of 700 East, plan for bikeways to connect to the 7200 South track station, develop urban design standards for commercial developments, and then continue to employ design and landscaping elements to buffer the effects of higher intensity uses on adjacent residential uses. We do have a large variety of condo and residential projects on here, so we still think that this mixed use zone and proposed project is in line with these goals. I just wanted to make sure that we reference the right ones as we talk about it. And with that, I will mute myself and let John take over.
I guess there's no questions. And maybe there will be after I speak, but I appreciate the opportunity to present our concepts and our plans here. I feel like we've given this a lot of thought to meet the needs of the neighborhood and the corridor of 7200 South there, and felt like that we, we're quite. I mean, I don't think that we were overly aggressive in what we were trying to do. We weren't trying to jam any more into this. We took an attitude of doing what we felt was the proper thing for the area, to improve that corridor of 7200 South in a very desirable way. We feel like these will be great units, both like Jason explained, 2 and 3 bedroom units, all with 2-car garages, with nice open space in there, with the little amenities that will be very pleasant from the road. There will be some fencing in front of the units, as well as the landscaping that will soften that. I believe that both for the area residents and the residents of our project, they will see the value of this and enjoy this location immensely. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer anything also.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Yeah, I don't have any either.
So with that, do we move to the public comments?
Yep, you'll open the public hearing and then Kate will start reading comments.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the public comment section. What else do I need to do?
That's it. Just turn it over to Kate.
Okay, let's read them.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. All right, let's.
Did
Yeah.
anybody let Dustin in yet?
He tried to join an earlier meeting, so IT's working with him to get him into the right one.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Dear Mr. Binks, in
I'm not
reviewing the
sure.
proposed site plan referenced above, we think the parking inside the development may be inadequate, which would have a detrimental effect to the surrounding. Additionally, we have a concern regarding increased traffic on 525 East. As it now is, the traffic speeds on Fort Union Boulevard at times approach freeway speeds. We realize that Fort Union Boulevard is a state road. However, we propose that the city petition for a traffic light at the intersection of 525 East to ease the side street traffic flow and calm the speeds. Sincerely, Michael T. Davis, CPA, Brian Labrum, President of Fort Union Cove Condominiums, Jeff Anderson and Gay Griffiths, and Steve and Cindy Griffiths. And it looks like it's a Ray Paul and Larry Lim. And that's all I have.
From here, we'll just make sure we don't get any last minute comments, and then it's a motion to close the public hearing.
I haven't received any comments since that one this afternoon.
Well, we can give it a few minutes. And then somebody's welcome to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Benson, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Kate, you want to take a roll call on that?
I sure do.
Do I need to? Yes. Okay.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Costello.
Yes,
Okay. And I don't think Commissioner Snow is with us yet.
Still trying to log in.
Yeah, he's not here yet.
So can we do it's my next move to make a recommendation on this?
I'll make a recommendation.
Hold on real quick. I think
Oh.
Garrett wanted to talk a little
Oh.
bit more about these motions. But yes, the next
Oh,
step
okay.
is to make
Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. So we're going to break this into three different motions because we're going to be making three different decisions here.
Okay,
First is going to be the motion for a rezone. This is, again, that legislative decision. So you can approve or you can either recommend or recommend to deny this rezone application, and you have some flexibility to do so.
I did have a question on this as in regards to the comment that we received about a traffic light or something like that. I can understand their concern there. Is that something that we would consider for the rezone or for one of the other two motions to make it a requirement to do some kind of traffic study?
Our city engineer, when he looks at all these developments as they come in, he looks at the density and the geometry of the streets as they exist. And for 17 units, he decided that the traffic pressure wouldn't be great enough to require even a traffic study.
Okay.
But you know, the rezone is independent of the development. So if you approve the rezone, if for whatever reason financing or ownership or something changes, they could come back with an entirely different development. So a traffic light would not be with the rezone.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted clarification on that and to make sure that we recognize that the comment was heard. So
Sure.
thank you, Mr. Binks.
anything else?
no,
Okay,
I'm prepared to make a motion.
thank you.
Okay, for the rezone. I move that we forward a recommendation to the Midvale City Council to approve the rezoning of 532 to 568 East Fort Union Boulevard to mixed-use zone from a single-family residential with duplex and 7200 South overlays to the mixed-use zone with 7200 South, 7200 overlay with the following findings. Number one, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the goals of the 2016 Midvale City General Plan, including the 2019 Housing Plan. And number two, the land and its surrounding environs have changed to such a degree that it is in public interest to recognize the changed character of the area.
I second.
Okay, can you take a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes,
and Commissioner Erickson.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's go to the next one. So this is motion number 2.
And Chair, the next two motions that will be made are administrative decisions. These are, again, if they meet the requirements of our ordinance, we have to pass them. If there are things that need to be mitigated, for instance, traffic or whatever, this would be the appropriate time to add those conditions. And then if there are things that cannot be mitigated, that would be the time to deny it.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep. Okay. I move that we approve a conditional use permit, a small scale master plan, and a preliminary site plan for the 17-unit Palais 550 townhome master plan development at 532 to 568 East Fort Union Boulevard, and forward a recommendation to the Midvale City Council to approve the rezone and preliminary plat with the findings and conditions of approval in the staff report.
Get a second.
I second it.
Okay, take a roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Okay, here's our third motion.
I'll go ahead.
Oh.
I move that we forward a recommendation to the Midvale City Council to approve the 17-lot preliminary subdivision plat for 532 to 568 East Fort Union Boulevard with the findings and conditions of approval recommended in the staff report.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yep, Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Costello.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. I guess we just move forward then. Is that correct, Alex?
You are supposed to announce the results.
The results are we passed everything.
Okay, and then move
That's
on.
as much as I know.
Yep.
And move on to the, do we move it to the city council?
The rezone and preliminary plat will go to city council. The conditional use permit, small scale master plan and site plan are your decisions to make. So if the rezone and plat are approved, then staff will finish the rest.
Great.
Like rezone and plat. There is still some more work on the plat to do.
Okay, well, it looks like we're moving to where we needed to be. 2 for us and one not. So whatever that means.
Thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to agenda item number 3. Did Dustin ever get on, by the way?
Not yet. I've called him and emailed him. So at this point, the ball's in his court.
Well, okay then. We're going to move to agenda item number 3, which is the public hearing of 7039 / 7045 South 3rd East conditional use permit for a 3 flag lots and 3 duplexes plus preliminary subdivision for a 6-lot subdivision. Jacob Weber of Weber Engineering is the applicant. Level 12 LLC is the property owner. Jason Binks, a senior planner, will present for staff. Jason?
Hey, good to see you guys again. Here we are. All
It's
right.
been a long time.
Yep. This one's a little less moving parts. Like you said, conditional use and a preliminary subdivision right there on 3 different parcels between 7039, 7045 South, 300 East. Jacob Weber from Weber Engineering. I haven't seen him logged in yet, but that's all right. He may come in here shortly. This one too, ironically, was sent to 61 property owners, just like the previous one. I got one call, but no submitted comments. They were in support. And here are the applications. So for your approval tonight would be conditional use. They're asking for a flag lot and twin homes. And for your recommendation to city council will be on the preliminary subdivision plat. So 2 different motions. Here we are along 300 East. These properties, 3 of them owned by the same individual. They will be consolidating these and then changing them into 6 different lots with 3 twin homes. The site plan is a lot easier to see. They currently have 3 curb cuts going into 3 different parcels, and those will be removed, and then 1 one driveway. And the existing homes on this lot right now have been removed. So the only thing that's there is the land and the trees. This is what it looked like from Google Street Views from a few years ago. Again, these have all been moved. There's a fence here currently, and those have been demolished. I want to look right across the street. And across the street a couple years ago, they were building these townhomes. So there is several townhomes adjacent to this proposal. And this is just right across the street. So if we go back, there are these units here. These are all single-family dwelling with duplex overlay that you see in this picture. So everything adjacent is single-family with duplex, which allows that subdivision of the twin homes. So then here's the preliminary subdivision. Again, the site plan's a little better to look at, but I did want you to look at the plat. So 6 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but 3 structures. And then the ingress, or rather the shared driveway, is right here. This is a little bit better to see. So 3 structures split down the middle. All of them have 2, if not 3 car garages. This is the frontage, and along the frontage, these 2 units to the north and south are 2 stories, and these 2 units to the rear is a single story. I wanted you to look at the floor plans of what you're approving. So I put this together where the north and the south unit, so this unit here and this unit here, are basically mirror images of each other. So when we look at one floor plan, it's for both, they're just flipped. You've got the 2 car garages in the living space, and then a first floor, and then some bedrooms up top. And this is that rear unit. So single story, the 2 car garages, and then the living spaces here. All of these do have basement, so this is going to be a lower development. We're not looking at a lot of height. Here's some renderings that they provided. The single driveway shared between the 6 units. We're looking east, so this is what's going to be visible from the frontage. The 2 car garage is tucked in here. Landscaping and trees along the frontage, and then lower in the back. Here's some colored elevations. Again, I'm not showing you all 4 sides, but these are kind of the major components of it. So this is looking east. It's a west elevation, but it's looking into the property. This is the rear property in the very back, and this is kind of looking north, so it's the south elevation. So 2 stories and then a single in the back. So this development meets the same checklist that I use for each staff report. We just go through all the pieces, make sure that the setbacks, the development, the scale, the mass, the location, the materials, everything looks good, the landscaping, and this does meet all code requirements. So with that, the conditions of approval, I have worked with Jake, and he's provided a lot of stuff up front, so there's less conditions than you would normally see for these kinds of developments, only because he's provided them so early in the process. So conditional use then, for the conditional use permit rather, is to make sure that the development that he's proposed is the development that comes in for a building permit. So you're seeing exactly what they're going to build. And then that's reflected on the subdivision as well. He's provided a note that says what was submitted and approved by you is what needs to be built. So there's not going to be a change in between your approval and the time they're going to build it. So it is what it is presented. So with these standard conditions then, 2 motions, one for the conditional use and then one for recommendation of the preliminary plat to the city council. Garrett, do you want to jump in here?
So with this being a conditional use permit, again, this is one of those things that's an administrative decision. If it meets the requirements of the statute, we need to approve. I think you've heard me repeat this enough times tonight, so I'll just stop right there unless you have any other questions.
Also, just let's let the minutes show here that Dustin has joined us.
6:44 p.m.
And were there any comments on this one?
Got to open up the public hearing first.
Yeah.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing then, since I'm in charge. This is the portion of the agenda that allows any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, or issues. If you'd like to comment on a public hearing item, you will be allotted time during this portion of the meeting. Email your comments to alexmurphy@midvale.com. We won't be taking any public comments on Facebook or YouTube feeds. When commenting, limit your comments to 400 words, which is approximately 3 minutes. Include your first and last name, include your city of residence, and include the name of the agenda item. City staff will only read into record the equivalent of 3 minutes. So please be concise with your statements.
And I have not received any comments to my email.
Nor have I.
Well, I guess we can give it a minute and then we'll move to close that when you feel ready, commissioners.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see the applicant
Either.
here. So if you had any questions or anything for him, I might be able to answer it.
Jason, is there a problem with visitor parking with that kind of a situation with the shared driveway? And I mean, if you wanted to get out and couldn't because your neighbor was visiting, had visitors.
Right. So the rear, the single story structure in the back does have some additional parking that will probably be used by the folks in the rear. But they do have the required 2 parking stalls for each unit. I would guess that if these folks here had guests, they would either allow them to park in their little space or along 300 East. And as I drive through 300 East, I see a lot of on-street parking. So it's a valid question, but right now it does meet code.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add that that's usually the fire department doesn't allow parking on driveways like this one. So there should always be the ability to get through it. And if it's not, then it's a safety hazard that we can enforce through that fire code provision.
Yeah, I wondered that. So would they have to change that? I mean, if we get to that point, would they have to modify that?
What do you mean?
I mean, so that we make sure that the fire can get in and stuff? Or is it not really an issue? And
fire's already looked at it, right, Jason?
Yes, they have.
oh, okay.
If they were parking after the development was built, then it would be an enforcement issue with fire or enforcement officer. But what they've proposed, like I said, does meet code. The width, the setbacks, the indoor parking. I don't doubt that there, maybe some additional cars from time to time, but along this 300 East, I do see a lot of guests parking on the street.
All right, thanks.
I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing portion.
I would second that.
Kate?
Yes. Okay. Commissioner Snow.
Yes, sorry.
It's okay. Commissioner Erickson.
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Costello.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move that we approve a conditional use permit for the flag lot and proposed twin homes and forward a recommendation to the city council to approve the mid-6 twin homes preliminary plat at 7039-7045 South, 300 East, with the findings and conditions of approval in the city staff report.
I second.
Kate,
Yep. Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
and Commissioner Snow.
Yes.
okay, it's been approved. That was the first one. Do we do the second one?
They were both administrative, so we put them
Great.
into the same.
Great, thank you. So we can move to agenda item number 4, is that correct?
Mhm.
Yep, let's do it. Public hearing on zoning ordinance, text amendment, citywide, text amendment modifying open space standards for master plan development in RM-12 zone. Adam Nash of the Land Development LLC is the applicant. Alex Murphy is planning director. Will present for staff. Take it away, Alex.
Great, thank you. So this is a text amendment that we received from Mr. Nash for what would result in a reduction in some open space requirements in exchange for an increase in other open space requirements in the RM12 zone. So the master plan developments in the RM12 zone have had their standards in place as they are today for at least something like 20 years. There's been a few minor changes as some things have been added, but generally speaking, open space and other standards that are in those master plan development provisions have been there since before the current ordinance existed or was adopted in 2002. So that means we've had this requirement for 15% improved common open space and 50% general open space in there for 20 plus years. These two requirements are probably the ones that we receive the most complaints about when it comes to doing master plan developments. But over the years, we've never had anybody successfully pursue a text amendment. I can't say if anybody's ever pursued one in general. We just haven't had them changed since 2002. But they're always talked about. So Mr. Nash is working on a master plan development, and he has put together this request to modify those standards for limited projects. The way that the request has come in is that, and as we've worked with him and his team on it, what this change would do is allow master plan developments that have more than 10 acres, propose more than 60 units, and are adjacent to agricultural overlay properties along at least 65% of their project boundary to reduce their improved common open space requirement by up to 6% and increase in exchange their general open space requirement by the same amount. So you could take that 15% improved common area and reduce it to as little as 9%. And in exchange, you would increase the general common open space from 50% to 56%. This would allow larger master plan developments in very specific locations to modify their open space requirement. It doesn't apply to very many properties. We only have really 2 areas where we have the agricultural overlay. There's one along 80th South, and then there's another one along, I believe it's 8600 South, down at the south end. And the RM12 zone is only adjacent to that section along 80th South. So it's very, very tailored and narrow in application. But even though it's pretty narrow in application, we're not totally in favor of it at the staff level. We don't think that reducing open space is really in line with what the general plan and the zoning ordinance call for in these kinds of developments. The general plan says that we want to buffer uses and stability areas from intensive uses. provide pedestrian and bicycle connections through and between neighborhoods, and provide access to park trails and recreation facilities. So these open space areas, these improved common open space areas, are those amenity areas. They're the trails, they're the clubhouses, the parks, the playgrounds, etc. So by reducing the area that's allotted to them, we're not getting as much in terms of the recreational area. And then second, I should say 1B rather, we already have kind of a low amount of parks and open space in the city as a whole. In the general plan, it specifically says we're short somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30% below the National Recreation and Park Association recommendations. And as our population increases, that deficit only grows. So reducing open space park areas means we increase the deficit, moving in the wrong direction. And then second, we've been working with Mr. Nash on this Midvale Mills project for some time now, and this text amendment specifically tailored to allow that project to remove certain open space provisions because they are of concern to the neighbors. If this were approved, you would see the trail connection on 150 East and the community garden on the existing church parcel removed. And we're not totally in love with the idea of adopting text amendments to address design issues on specific projects. We think that the ordinance should be kept at that higher level that applies more generally to projects and doesn't allow an individual developer to come in and make changes to address a particular issue. We do appreciate that Mr. Nash is working with the neighbors to try and come up with a solution that satisfies all the parties. We just don't necessarily agree that this is the best one. If this were approved, the latest design that he's provided still looks like it complies with the open space requirements. So he would not take full advantage of that reduction. His project would go from 15 to 10% on the improved common open space side and increase the general open space from 50 to 55. But the project's already above 55, so it doesn't really add open space in that case. It still meets that standard, but it doesn't increase the amount of open space available to the project. So for these reasons, we think that this text amendment shouldn't be approved. It is, Garrett will tell you, a legislative action though, so there is a lot of flexibility here, and we've gotten a lot of comments that Kate will read off for you to consider. So that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions for me today.
And we'll turn over to Garrett.
Alex already shared what I was going to share, so
Okay.
We're good.
Commissioners, you have any questions, comments, or anything?
Not yet. I will.
Not yet.
I will.
Okay.
We do have the applicant here, so if you want to give him a chance, I'm sure he's got some things he'd like to say on the matter.
Mr. Nash, welcome. Would you like to make some comments? Unmute yourself.
How are we doing now?
Good.
Okay, thank you. Adam Nash for Land Development, LLC. Been involved with this project now for close to 5 years, assembling these different parcels, but more recently for about a year and a half, working specifically with staff, working through site-specific issues. The reason that we're faced with this text amendment is to provide us as developers and communities to have more flexibility in what we propose, so that every project doesn't need to be a cookie cutter from the project that was approved prior to it. These are very select cases with the city and with the zoning maps that we're addressing. There's not a lot of broad scale. So as far as any kind of precedence, very little impact. One of the greatest disparaging issues between the city and this RM12 zone and these other things is that the properties themselves, they've been identified for a number of years as being in the master plan of these areas for this specific type of growth. And while the community connection, we're proposing to remove that, this is only one instance where there's a conflict between what we're proposing and with the actual text itself. As Alex said, one of the big problems that we constantly face and have other developers in your city is these are really far-reaching percentages. 50% of a project in common open space is very, very unusual. It doesn't provide, well, what it does do is it gives you a lot of landscape, and then you have to take it out of the size of the buildings or other amenities. So there's that constant conflict there. And then to take 30% of that open space and commit it to be improved open space further causes problems, budgeting, affordability, and these other kind of issues that we're faced with that have really nothing to do with the specific text amendment, but they are real issues with the community. One other thing, just in dealing with this specific request for a text amendment, we're trying to comply with the desires of our neighbors. And this is like one way that we felt we could do it with the least amount of problems. And that is to reduce the specific numbers for the improved open space. The community didn't like the community trail specifically coming through everyone's backyards and causing future liability issues. And we think that having the flexibility to work these out in a mathematical way is an appropriate request for us as a developer and for the community as whole. If that makes any sense to everyone. I'm available for questions.
Go ahead, anybody?
I don't have any currently.
I don't either.
Am I supposed to just wait for you, Candace, when you decide you're going to have one? Okay.
Adam, would it be okay if I added just a couple of thoughts?
Absolutely, Loyal.
So I work with Adam closely. We've been doing this for 20 plus years. My name's Loyal Hume at Curtin and McConkey, and develop these types of projects all throughout the United States. Just a couple of thoughts that might be helpful to you as you consider this. We've been working closely with your staff, and we have tailored this text amendment. One of the things that as you know, is really important in your city is to have ordinances that are applicable and beneficial to the neighbors. And what we find in working with cities throughout the country is that with these larger developments like this, it is helpful to have some flexibility. And we believe that this text amendment is carefully tailored to not create negative impacts in the future, but to really help the neighbors in this particular situation and the area of your city that we're trying to develop in. We still, and this is such an important point, we are not reducing the open space requirement in any way. The overall open space requirement stays static at 55%. And we will meet that standard. This only allows us to have a little bit less of improved open space because the neighbors in this area don't want, because of safety issues and other things, they don't want to have that improved open space that would be typically provided in this case. So we worked closely with your staff to tailor this so that it does apply citywide, but really there's only a couple of other locations in your city where it could apply. So it's a carefully tailored, beneficial text amendment that we believe will actually really help your city. It will help us get this development. Obviously, we're being completely transparent about that. That's one of the reasons we're doing it. But the neighbors have pushed for it. We've been pushing for it, and we've tailored it in such a way that we actually think it will be a win-win for everyone. This will allow the city to have a bit more flexibility in how they deal with the improvements to open spaces in other areas. We do believe it's consistent with your general plan. We disagree with staff's analysis. We do believe that it is consistent with your general plan. And while it is tailored to address this specific issue in some ways, it's also carefully structured to apply across your entire city. So it's completely legal, and we believe completely consistent with your general plan, and with the ordinances that are in place. So just offer those couple of thoughts for you. Would really appreciate your willingness to do this and look at it in a broader spectrum, and be open for questions, as is Adam. Thank you.
Any questions, commissioners? Should we open for public comment now? Looks like we're ready. This is a portion of agenda that allows any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, or issues. If you would like to comment on a public hearing item, this is so long. You will be allotted time during the portion of the meeting. Email your comments to Alex Murphy at amurphy@midvale.com. We will not be taking public comments on Facebook or YouTube feeds. When commenting, please limit your comments to 400 words, which is the equivalent of 3 minutes. Include your first and last name. You can include your residence if you'd like. Include the name of the agenda item. So the public portion is ready.
Okay, my name is Jaylene Hill. I live with my husband and 2 young children in the Larson Cove community. I'm writing in support of the text amendment, which would facilitate the removal of the walkway cutting through our community as currently proposed in the Midvale Mills development plan. I appreciate Mr. Nash listening to our community and being willing to find a solution to build this development without harming our Larson Cove neighborhood in the process. I understand the purpose of wanting to have green space for communities, but using this strip of land to meet this requirement makes absolutely no sense. Not only does it not meet the mission or the spirit of the open space requirement, it creates a direct negative effect for both the Larson Cove and Midvale Mills community. Entertaining the idea that this walkway could be beneficial as an open space or as a quote unquote connecting trail makes me feel like the city has no interest in looking out for its residents or in even accomplishing the goals of its mission, but only care about being able to write in a report that it has created quote unquote open space or a quote unquote connecting trail. Why would the city choose to do something that directly impacts our community in a negative way when an acceptable solution has been presented by way of this text amendment? The very reason for the existence of the text amendment is to protect community members and offer solutions. Having a walkway open up to 150 East is troublesome for a number of reasons. Walls and fences along 150 East are frequent targets of graffiti. Creating a long walkway will invite more graffiti, a collection of garbage, and any number of other behaviors best accomplished unseen. Currently, we feel safe having our kids run and play from one backyard to the next in our community. Having the walkway makes those backyards not feel safe. In addition, doing a walkway where a driveway crosses seems dangerous, increasing the risk of children being injured. Please use good judgment in considering this text amendment and the solutions it provides for the city, the developer, and our community. We will recommend approving the text amendment to the City Council, effectively removing the need for a pathway through the Larson Cove development. From Jaylene, Dave, Dawson, and Everett Hale. Okay, this next comment that I'm going to read is a long one. Well, it's more than 300 or the 3 minutes. So I'll read the portion that the resident wanted read out loud, but the commissioners have been provided the letter in its entirety. Okay, this is from Christopher Ashby. The solution: create more flexibility with regard to how open space is used by the city. The neighbors and the developers, so collectively, they can design a development that meets the needs of the neighborhood rather than being arbitrarily constrained by a strict standard with regard to how the open space must be improved. The proposed simple text amendment allows the city and developers with large developments to be offered a bit of flexibility with regards to when and how they use open space, allowing the city, the current residents, the future residents, and the developer to be benefited. It is our understanding that the planning staff remains a bit concerned about the text amendment, largely because they do not want to set a precedent that other developers might seek to exploit. We believe that concern is misplaced. This amendment creates a very narrow application that could only be used with larger developments where this flexibility remains important. Therefore, it should not create any application risk or challenges for the staff going forward. The fact is that the actual percentage of open space will remain the exact same. The only proposed modification is to reduce the amount of quote unquote improved open space so that the pathway doesn't have to come into play. By approving a text amendment for this narrow number of future developments, the city can protect the interests of the current neighbors and still get a nice residential development and for future developments that are consistent with its master plan. Moreover, the developer and landowner can realize on the value of their project while the current and future residents of the adjoining communities are safeguarded from the perils that ramrodding through the pathway or similar improvements would cause. For all of these reasons, we ask that the commission recommend approval of this proposed text amendment. Please contact us if you have any questions. We earnestly invite you to come talk and walk the property to see for yourself and arrive at your own conclusions of what is truly best for the community. Thank you very much. Christopher, Callie, Stockton, Lauren, McKay, Brindley, Bronx, Emma, Thomas, Tyler, Taft, Mary, and Elizabeth Ashby. Okay, this next one is from Jordan Nelson. Hi, Alex. I hope you're doing well these days. As you know, we have monitored the Midvale Mills proposal very closely as it directly impacts our property and that of the many neighbors in my community, Larson Cove. Our primary objective has simply been to make sure the ill-advised path is not incorporated. The current text amendment proposal by Mr. Nash and his attorney is a fantastic work around and compromise that can benefit each party involved. Please consider our voice in support of the proposal. Thank you, Jordan and Kristen Nelson. Okay, the next one is from Andrew Hyde, Midvale Planning and Zoning Commission. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and better understand the proposal for a text amendment for the Midvale Mills project. I'm a member of the Larson Cove community, and this proposal directly affects me and my family, as the original proposal included a path from the Midvale Mills development and ran directly between my backyard and through my neighbor's front yard on its way to 150 East. I understand that this pathway was originally included in the proposal to meet improved open area requirements for the city's antiquated ordinance, but as people on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, have actually looked at the proposed pathway, it has become obvious that the pathway is not beneficial for either community and serves no real purpose. It doesn't add any value to the Midvale Mills community, and it certainly negatively affects us as members of the Larson Cove community. If you have any doubts about that, I would invite you to come and look at the area and see where the proposed pathway would go and see how it actually would affect those of us living in its path. While you're there looking where the path would go, I would ask you to think to yourself how you would feel if you lived there and if you would want to have a pathway running through your yard affecting your families and kids. Simply approving that proposal with the pathway because it quote unquote technically meets requirements for improved open area would be short-sighted and harmful to both communities. The pathway would go directly past or through at least 7 families' yards in our community, as well as crossing over a driveway, which only increases the potential for crime and accidents in both communities. I appreciate Mr. Nash and the Midvale Mills developers being willing to work with us and change the proposal to not include the pathway anymore. If there ever was a circumstance for an exception to be made to a city ordinance and allow a text amendment, this is it. I feel this is a good compromise for both communities, and I would ask that you please pass the text amendment and recommend the new proposal without the pathway to City Council. Thanks. Andrew Hyde. Okay, this one is from Mike Hickelsheimer. Hi, first of all, thanks for all you do for our community as planning director. My wife, my kids, and I have lived in this area for the past 11 years and consider it home. I appreciate what you do to make it feel that way. I'll keep this short as I'm sure your inbox is receiving a few emails from our street tonight. I wanted to let you know that I'm not in favor of the potential pathway for the Midvale Mills proposal and would like to see a text amendment to allow for the project to proceed without the pathway. Thanks, Mike. And this one is from Allie Hyde. Alex, please consider what a pathway in our backyard would do to us. Would you like a pathway in your backyard for strangers and wanderers to walk through when your 2-year-old is playing outside? This decision doesn't personally affect you, but it greatly affects me and my neighbors. Please put yourself in our shoes or our homes. Thank you. Allie Hyde. And then I have one more comment after that. Let me just get that pulled up. Oops, sorry. Okay. This is from David Hale, VP of Larson Cove HOA. Dear Midvale Planning and Zoning Commission, this is an excerpt of a more comprehensive letter that is provided for your review, which I believe Alex has sent to everyone. The HOA board of the Larson Cove community is writing to express our support of the zoning ordinance text amendment submitted by Adam Nash. As referenced in the staff report, there has been extreme concern expressed by our community regarding the proposed pathway. We applaud Mr. Nash for listening, recognizing our concerns, and submitting a request for the text amendment. Granting this text amendment is clearly in the best interest of the neighborhoods, the developer, as well as Midvale City. We would like to respond to Mr. Murphy's argument for not recommending approval for the text amendment. Argument 1. Not setting a precedent for future development. We understand Mr. Murphy's concern in not wanting to open the floodgates for text amendments in the future. However, he himself acknowledged that this situation was unique, and the existence of land where this type of amendment would even apply is almost negligible. Furthermore, not protecting the best interests of a community because there exists a slight possibility that the city may have to tell a developer no in the future does not seem to be in line with the purpose of government. Argument 2, not endorsed by the general plan. Mr. Murphy states that the general plan calls for open space, or as he calls it, a quote unquote trail connection. Using this proposed path to satisfy those requirements is simply a farce. The path in no way accomplishes the spirit of the directive, and using it for that purpose to the detriment of the neighborhood is simply negligent. Argument 3, the developer can reduce the number of lots. Mr. Murphy's explanation to simply reduce lots is also contrary to the general plan and the stated rationalization to help with the housing shortage for changing the zoning in the first place. Reducing the open space requirement to eliminate the detrimental path while allowing 3 more homes to be built is a much better way to meet the needs of the city's general plan. Text amendment, the right solution. By approving the text amendment, you will be meeting the needs of the community as well as Mr. Nash. The city will gain a beautiful new neighborhood that furthers its mission. Please recommend to approve this text amendment. Regards, Larson Cove HOA Board. And that's all that I have.
Yes, and I have not received any additional comments since that last one.
Could I make a comment? Is there any way that we can just eliminate the path, the trail path, with, affecting the amendment, or because the neighbors aren't happy with the trail. And if you just eliminated that, then I don't know, does that make any sense at all?
So on our side of this discussion, we've had many conversations with Mr. Nash and his team about the trail. And without the text amendment, eliminating the trail isn't an option.
It isn't an option?
Because basically what it would mean, if you eliminate the trail, you have to replace that open space somewhere else, because it was being used to meet that 15% open space requirement. If the text amendment is approved, then the trail can be eliminated because the improved common open space requirement has been reduced enough that it's no longer necessary to satisfy the requirement any longer. So I want to just make sure that it's clear that I want the Planning Commission to make the recommendation that they feel is best given the comments and recommendations that they've received. So don't feel beholden to whatever I say or to whatever any particular person says. This is a great opportunity for the commission to discuss what they think is the best way to approach this kind of project in the future and make sure that they give the best possible recommendation to the council. But with that said, we would like to get a recommendation from the Planning Commission tonight rather than postponing the discussion. So even if that recommendation is some sort of qualified one in some manner, we are hoping to get that recommendation tonight so we don't drag out this project and process any longer.
That was going to be my next question, is if we could table it and have a discussion about it.
In the meantime, can I make a motion to close the public hearing portion?
Would it be possible for me to comment, but before they do on that one, on her question? I defer if not.
The commission can ask you questions after the public hearing's closed too. So.
Yeah, that'd be more comfortable.
I second.
No problem.
Okay. Candace closed us out.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Snell,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Great, public hearing's closed. So commissioners, what are your questions? What's our discussion? I don't know that we want to table it. I think we want to move forward with things. What's the Pandora box that we're looking at? I mean, I can't see.
I'm a little confused if it's I've heard it called a trail and then a walkway.
Pathway, yeah.
Pathway.
Nobody wants that in their yard,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
How
seem
long
to
is this?
separate that.
How many feet does this walkway or trail involve? I'm kind of curious what can it connect to?
It's about 500 feet long and it's about 9,000 square feet total. I can share my screen and show you the area that we're working with here.
That'd be great.
So this is the southwest corner of the Midvale Mills project. So we've got 150 east in the tracks line off to the west, and then 8,000 south is off the screen to the north. So the plan that the Planning Commission approved has a trail that connects to a park space right here where you can see that horse corral. And then it runs west through this narrow space where you can see my blue line out to 150 east. The rationale that staff holds for that trail's existence is that there is a trail planned. There's a regional trail planned to run along 150 east that is partially in existence to the south, and we've been working on it at the north. So it would make sense to connect to that trail as cleanly as possible. And there isn't really any other use for this property inside of the Midvale Mills project. As you've heard from the neighbors, some of them have used that property as part of their yard space or landscape area with an agreement from the church. And so there's definitely some concern there that they're gonna lose out on what they've put into that space and have the possibility of people basically moving between fence lines near their yards. We've had a lot of comments on the trail. In fact, just about every comment we've received for this project has been about the trail or has included the trail at some point.
So can we do a fence so that it doesn't impact the people and they're worried about people going through their yards? I know one of the concern was the graffiti, but that seems a little bit minor. Somebody trailing through your yard, is it really their yard?
We hadn't gotten into the details about how the pathway would be designed. That was really reserved for the next phase in the project. But I believe it was always the intent to have fences lining both sides, so that it wouldn't be like somebody's walking through their yard, their front or back yard, but they would be just on the other side of the fence from there. So the concerns about graffiti and such may still be warranted. It would be managed by the HOA, so there would be a body responsible for maintaining it. It wouldn't just be kind of an abandoned sidewalk left to nowhere.
So there would be a fence.
Adam, can you answer that question? If the pathway were built, would there be a fence?
Yes, our proposal was to have it fenced on both the north and the south sides so that we could at least stop the pedestrian traffic through these adjoining backyards.
So Alex, am I seeing that their property stops at the yellow and where the blue is not their property?
The blue is a measurement line, so I was just measuring it to get the distance really quick. So the orange lines are approximate property lines, so don't trust them to be exact, but they give you a rough relationship between property boundaries. The gap here is somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was 18 feet wide across the length of that. So it's not wide enough for a road or anything, but it was wide enough to put a sidewalk with fences and landscaping down it.
As you can appreciate, though, putting a big fence back there is not desirable by those same residents either. It really impacts their backyards.
Well, it seems like a fence would eliminate a lot of the problem.
Exactly.
Well, I think they worry that whether the fence is there or not, that it would, people will breach those and come in.
Looks like it could be breached easily right now.
Yeah. Why is the HOA responsible for that?
That would be the Midvale Mills HOA I was referencing. So they
But
would have.
why would the HOA be responsible for that?
For the trail?
For the fence and so forth. I mean,
it would be commonly owned property. So if there is a trail built here and it's lined with fences and somebody decides to drop their litter back here or spray paint graffiti on the fences, it's going to be common property. It's not going to be public. It's not going to be privately owned by any particular individual. So the HOA for the overall project would be responsible for the maintenance on it.
Under the current proposal, without the trail, they don't think very many people would utilize it. By putting a trail in there, you invite people to come and participate in those type of devious activities. So as it stands, that's why the neighbors are all opposed to it. They don't want to invite people. They want open space so that we don't invite people to have those type of mischievous activities.
any other comments, questions?
I recall on a previous review of Midvale Mills thinking that pathway was a bonus in my mind because of the connection with mass transit. I thought that seemed like something I would want, a walkable trail to easily get to mass transit. I can understand the concerns about ne'er-do-wellers in the area up to no good. But I can also understand that happens on public sidewalks all the time. Stuff happens on my sidewalk all the time. The driveway was brought up in some of the comments, and I can certainly understand being concerned for pedestrian safety there. That would be, I think, the biggest concern I would have. But I still think it's beneficial to the project. I'm kind of concerned there's no other way to address this other than a text amendment, which would affect the entire city. I know that there wouldn't be very many projects that it would impact, but I still feel like I just don't understand how there can't be another way to address it without this overarching text amendment. Those are my comments and kind of twisty thought process.
But see, that's what I kind of feel too, that there's got to be some other, way to approach this.
We've been working on it for about 12 months with everybody's creative minds, and this is really the only one that we've been able to get everybody on board with. And so we try to narrowly tailor it so that it minimal impact for the city, maximum benefit for the neighbors, and the development is able to proceed as proposed. So there aren't many times when we can really walk that tightrope and have a win-win for everybody, but we truly believe we've been able to do that in this case. I think you're hearing that from your neighbors and from residents. So yeah, we understand nothing's ever perfect, but boy, if there was ever a situation where a text amendment is appropriate, we believe this is it.
Commissioners, any thoughts?
Chair, if I could just chime in real quick on the large scale master plan recommendation that the Planning Commission gave last month, there was a condition included to address safety concerns at the driveway. So I know that got brought up and Commissioner Erickson mentioned it, but we did at least factor that in, assuming the path is built. So I'm not sure that was communicated broadly to the general public, but it would be something that we'd address at the next stage of the application were the path to be included in the proposal.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, wasn't our numbers on the open space previous, weren't they miscalculated?
Yes, so the original plan that the Planning Commission saw did have a miscalculation on the open space. I've like quadruple checked the number now. So we fixed that error, and the last proposal that the Planning Commission saw had the trail and had a community garden space where the church building is now on the southeast corner of 80th and 3rd East. So if this amendment were approved, both the trail and that community garden space would no longer be required to meet the open space requirement. So it basically revert back to something closer to the original plan that the Planning Commission saw, but it would still satisfy the ordinance after the adoption too.
Any other comments? Then we need to decide. Make a motion.
So in the staff report, I've given you a handful of options. If you feel like that they are insufficient, feel free to add explanations to them. I basically just have the vanilla approve, deny, or table. But as I mentioned previously, I'd recommend not tabling so that we can get this in front of the council and avoid delaying the project any further.
Let me know when you're ready to make a motion.
I'm still having a hard time.
I am too.
I'm thinking.
I like the walkway that it can get, people have that option, especially for the future. And I'm concerned with the residents, what they want.
Yeah.
It's,
As someone in an HOA and on the HOA board, that's a headache and a half.
Hmm.
I mean, that's awful to be in charge of that.
And that's understandable, but that's kind of the job of an HOA is to handle.
Well, you're expanding something that doesn't need to be there. You're making work. You're making all of us liable, the
Right.
HOA then, which isn't ideal either.
But the way
Either
it was,
way, it's not ideal.
but the way
the
it
way
was
we're looking at it.
proposed, that's the physical connection. And so does it need to be there? That's the question. I mean, because I thought it was a huge advantage to the project to have that connection. Very
Yeah,
few-
would the
very
project
few
been
places.
approved? Not if we would have known this last month.
Say that again, Dustin?
Would we have approved the project last month knowing this?
The project hasn't been approved. We have to go to the council to get that approved. So this is what we're waiting for, is to try and get this text amendment so we can get it approved without that trail.
And if this text amendment had been approved before the project came to you, it would have been an administrative decision that you wouldn't have had a whole lot of opportunity to impact.
Say a quick prayer and let's get your answer.
Commission, this is Jacob Ballstead with Garbett. Can I add something that I think will be beneficial?
Sure.
I appreciate the discussion that you guys have had, and I think there's some legitimate comments about having the trail connection and the benefit to it. Having the community have access to 150 East. The one thing that I think is important to realize is the trail is redundant. The same access is available, but through the streets. I think good planning is to have trails and pedestrian walkways in areas that are fronting streets, that are accessible, that have cars by them, that have traffic. Walkways that go between houses and yards that do not have a lot of eyes on them on a regular basis, are not well lit, tend to be more problematic, less safe for individuals, probably less used, except for maybe delinquents. The secondary trail is redundant. It just doesn't really improve anything. Having it left as common open space unimproved is really the best use for the space. So I hope that helps.
Well, then why can't we just have a big fence put up then? That's,
I think the issue, what he's saying too, is it's no different for you to walk out on a different way to get sidewalk, streetwise, whatever. I don't know that we need that pathway. I've never liked, you're walking down an alley, basically. It isn't going to be well lit. It's not going to be, it's just not. It causes problems. It does. Just like with the graffiti.
18 feet wide. That's a pretty big section of ground.
As far as we know, we don't know what it is because we don't know the people's property lines for sure. That's the other thing.
Well, we have a survey that shows property lines, and lighting was also one of those safety requirements included in that condition of approval, that recommended condition of approval.
in my head, I keep circling back to, we're focused on this one project, but a text amendment affects the entire city. I mean, we can also state that it's not going to affect very much of the city, but I still have issue with changing the entire thing when it's meant for a project that might benefit from a redesign to fit the actual code as it was intended. If this doesn't work for the neighbors and such, then maybe a redesign is required.
One thing that might help you on that is often with these bigger developments, a little more flexibility for the city can be helpful. In other words, in this instance, it's a trail that's causing a problem and the neighbors are concerned about, because it's going to, let's say you put up a big fence and you push them right out in front of Chris Ashby's driveway and some little kid gets hurt, right? That's one of the concerns here, and as well as the safety issues. It's going to be running literally right in the front and backyards of some of these people with security issues. In the next project, which there wouldn't be very many, but there may be another type of issue. What this does is ensures, and your staff's done a nice job in drafting it with us, it ensures you keep the open space. So we manage open space at 55%, but it creates flexibility so that we can address security issues, safety issues, these types of issues. So if in a particular area, it's hard to plan 20 years in advance. You know, you put a trail system through and you say, oh, well, this is where we're going to put the trail. Well, okay, but maybe 20 years later, it doesn't make sense. And that's really what your neighbors are saying is, look, we put one here. You're supposed to put some connectivity in cities, but it doesn't really work. This text amendment not only solves the issue there, but it allows for some flexibility in your future one too. So we actually kind of thought through that with your staff, and I think it's actually really helpful for you.
But I can weight the issue of it may not work on paper now, but when all those homes are built, it may work perfectly. I think it's a double-edged sword of it may not work right now as we envision it, but it will change quite a bit when the development is complete. So there's also that factor to look at the viability of this trail and the usefulness of it.
Good point. Good point. But you will have a lot more little kids running right out in front of Chris Ashby's driveway. And if the fence is a security fence, like some are talking about, so you can't see in and out, now you have a little guy riding his bike or a half dozen little kids riding their bikes up and down there. And I mean, there is no ability to really give the Ashbys and other owners along that way any kind of real, you know, if we're going to have a security fence, which some are talking about, there's really no way to give them really good notice. So now you've got a real liability and security risk for the city.
Well, the fence would have to drop down to 4 feet, correct, Alex?
There would be some site distance triangle issues that would have to be addressed. Might be 4, might be 3. We'd have to look at that with the actual design. But yeah, it would not be 6 foot fence, 6 foot solid fence up to the edges of the driveway. That would
right, but as soon as we do that, and this is kind of this chicken and an egg, as soon as we do that, now the security issues that everybody's concerned about now become a problem, right? So pick your poison on security. Do you want the guys to hop in the fence to create problems? Or do you want visibility problems so the little kid gets hit when he's coming out of the driveway? We kind of have to pick our poison if we go ahead and try and approve this. And this is you can tell we've been round and round on this for probably, 6 months, 8 months. This is just it's a challenging issue, but we do think that we found the solution. We just need to get support for it.
I don't know. I'm not ready to change for a project, but that's just me. How do you guys feel?
What was that again, Dustin?
I don't know if I'm ready to change the code over one project. How do you guys feel?
Yeah. See,
Feel like
that's the way I feel about
I
it.
need to see how it impacts further development.
It's like opening up a can of worms.
I'm in the same boat, Dustin.
So
I'm glad I'm not voting.
I might add that this could be, I don't mean to drag out the conversation longer, but this could be an opportunity to consider whether that 15% number is appropriate or not.
Right.
Because the recommendation could be, you know, approve this one and consider reducing open space generally as a whole. Or you could say maybe 15% is too high all the time. And you can change the recommendation in there too. You don't necessarily have to pick what we proposed. We just want to get a recommendation out of you tonight.
So we've had discussions in the past about this improved open space area and whether it's actually an improvement to the project, where you just throw in this or that to meet the requirement, and whether that's actually a benefit. Is it usable by the people in the project? So that I can see why Alex has brought this up.
I mean, you can't throw in a tree and say, oh, this is perfect, then we've met this requirement.
It's usually a
doesn't
playground
work.
and a pavilion.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's a barbecue area and a playground, and yeah.
I don't want to get too caught up on future projects because we don't know. I mean,
So what's the best? I mean, what's best for Midvale? I mean, we heard Alex talk about the percentages that we're below on open space comparatively to other standards. And if we were to reduce it more, does that get us even further behind?
how much percentage are we really reducing it? Alex, how much?
So let's see. If you went from, well, it's 5% of a project area, but it's about 30% of the improved common open space requirement. Because dropping from 15 to 10 is like a 1/3 reduction. But it is, you still have
space. You have the same 55%, but we just, in this particular instance, have the flexibility to go somewhere between 15 and 9 under the proposal. It could go down 1%, 2%, 3%. In this instance, we can go, we're planning to go down 5. So we would be at 10. So you'd only lose 5% of the improved open space in exchange.
It is a trade. So you would get, if everything were equal, you would get more general landscaping in exchange for less improved common area. So you wouldn't have as many playgrounds or picnic areas or barbecue pits and whatnot, but you would have more just landscaped areas.
Just for what it's worth, I'm really for it. I don't think we're not going to see that negative impact. We need to build places. We do. We're in that need place where we need to build some things, and we got to quit being so strong-arm about some things. The neighbors aren't up in arms about things. We've got to consider that. That's just my thought.
I hear you, Robin, because I mean, the comments are compelling and they make sense to some degree. I don't agree with all of them, but they make sense.
Right.
I guess I'm still having anxiety over how it's being done, whether, like, how much could you have redesigned it or that sort of thing to meet the current requirement, while also weighing that sometimes rules need to be changed at times.
This is Adam Nash. Can I just add one side note?
Go ahead, Adam.
So the plans start with the letter A, and we're now through the alphabet through Z, and we're back onto D. So it wasn't for lack of trying to come out with a design that would work for everybody, because we're basically on our 30th design at this point, trying to accommodate everyone's input. I mean, we've gone the greatest distance we can. I don't know if there's more ways to lay it out, but we're exhausted. So just to throw that in there with Alex, you know, that's.
I was going to say the same thing. We are on D, the second D, as far as these plans are concerned. So we have been working on
Alex was gonna say a double D, but he thought that wasn't appropriate.
I was going to say D2, but I didn't think that. We're on the second D.
Oh, boy. No harassment, guys. Hmm.
So is there any way to approve this, Alex, without changing the code?
Without changing the code, the project can be approved by adding an improved common open space. The latest proposal had the trail and the community garden on the church piece. So there still is some flexibility in there because you could remove the trail and add it to the other side. But I think Adam might have some concerns about going that route as far as future usability of the church property is concerned. If we're strictly limiting the project to the 10 and change acres that we've got west of 300 East and south of 8,000 South, you'd have to probably remove units or reduce lot sizes to get to the 15%. So if you want to keep the lot sizes where they are, which is admittedly smaller than most of the single family detached lots that we have in the city already, the text amendment looks like probably the only way to get the unit count where it's at today and meet the open space requirement.
I don't always want to punish the builders either. You know, and sometimes it feels that way. I mean, we can't make everybody happy. So let's take care of it. We never use our gazebo in this complex, ever, ever.
But if it was a trail to a track station, would you?
There's not a track station close by.
But it's a trail where you don't have to walk along a busy street.
Yeah,
But
it's a trail to a track station.
It's a trail to
Right.
nowhere. It's a trail to nowhere is what it is.
not necessarily.
A trail within a trail or a park within a park. I mean, is anybody ready?
I could be funny and say, why don't we just send the recommendation and let the city council figure it out?
I mean, that's ultimately what you're doing. The council will consider your recommendation against what they hear from the public and what they think is appropriate too. So you can make the recommendation that you feel is most appropriate, and then the council will take that and make their own decision.
Way to pass the buck, Colleen.
Well,
I say move it forward and let the council decide. That's what you're worried about.
I'd like to push it ahead and just without the text amendment and let the city council figure, what
Then
they
will it
think.
be right back to us?
Alex, would it be right back to us in that case?
What do you mean? So if you make a recommendation to deny the request, the council will take that, and then we'll have basically the same conversation with them that we just had tonight here. And then they will make their own decision about if they want to approve it. If they can approve the text amendment without your recommendation.
Yeah.
They
And
can. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Alex. And to be clear, the only thing that we're deciding tonight is the text amendment. The project is not before us as a whole. While it affects the project that has come before the Planning Commission before, the only thing before us tonight is this zoning text amendment. So when you're making your decision, the decision is whether or not to forward a positive recommendation to the city council to make the to make this text amendment, or if you deny it, you're providing a negative recommendation to the city council to say, don't pass this text amendment.
And then either way, regardless of how the text amendment decision goes, the city council will need to take action on the rest of the application. If the text amendment is approved, we've got a revised plan that they could approve immediately afterwards. If the text amendment is denied by the council, then they'd probably table that decision and the plan would have to be revised. So the city council is not likely going to send the project back to the planning commission. So I doubt that the planning commission will have another opportunity to comment on the project. So Garrett, I would keep Garrett's point in mind that this is not the project that you're deciding on. This is the text.
Just the amendment.
Is there verbiage that can be used on the amendment that makes the percentage dependent on the project, like minimum to high, between 10 and 15% per planning commission review?
We have to keep it objective.
Right.
So we don't really have the option to say like the planning commission gets to decide without having criteria attached to it. And then the planning commission doesn't always make the decision on the project either. So if this would not be the way that I would recommend going, but we could develop criteria that could allow that reduction.
Right.
That might be a better conversation for when we revisit master plan developments as a whole, which is still on the board. We'll be getting to that later this year.
Did that help anybody?
Yes and no. Is that helpful? Okay.
Got to make a motion, whatever we decide.
Unless you want to sit here awkwardly for the rest of it.
Yeah,
All right. I'll be brave.
go for it.
I move that we forward a recommendation to the city council to deny the proposed text amendment modifying open space standards for master plan developments in the RM12 zone.
I'll second that.
Kate? Sorry, Kate?
Okay, Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Erickson.
Yes.
That's you, Chair.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's my job. I guess it's been moved and forwarded on. Is that correct?
Yep. So we'll have that. We have that scheduled for the council to consider on the 6th. So we'll pass that recommendation along to the council, and then I'll report back after they make a decision, so you at least hear the outcome. That'll be sometime in April at least.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to agenda item number 5, and that is the staff update, upcoming meetings and projects.
Yes. So I hate to break it to you, but we do have a meeting in April. We got a couple applications before the deadline after the last meeting. So we have 2 items on that agenda, and hopefully the meeting won't be too bad, but we are going to have one on the 14th. Yeah, on the 14th. We have a couple other projects that might be coming in soon enough to warrant having a meeting on the 28th. So we went from last meeting having no meetings to this meeting possibly having 2. keep that in mind. The deadline for the 28th is next week. So we've been telling folks if we get at least 2 applications in that kind of middle cycle time period, then we'll schedule a special meeting. But if we get none or 1, then we'll just bump them to the next meeting in May. In that meeting in April, I will be out of town. So Janet and Jason will be representing the staff at that meeting. I'll be sending out the packet and everything the week before, but then I'll be gone that entire week. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them before I leave, or you can reach out to Janet and Jason to get that taken care of. I'm sure that they will do great running that meeting. I have every confidence in their ability to do so. Let's see. We've got, were any of you able to attend the legislative update that the ULCT and APA held this afternoon? Okay, good. I'm just going to steal their slide when we do our legislative update. I'm planning on doing that. If we hold a second meeting in April, I'll do it at that meeting. Otherwise, it'll be in May that we'll do that legislative update. But many of the bills take effect in May, so I'll be giving it to you kind of almost late. It'll be more of a heads up. Here's what we need to make change, or what changes we need to make in our ordinance as we move into the rest of the year. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. So we'll have a couple meetings with a lot of text and everything. I don't have anything else for you at the moment. So are there any questions or things that you guys want me to look into over the next couple of weeks?
No, I don't have any.
Are we meeting in the building next time?
Oh, yes, yes, thank you. Yes, we are. We are meeting in person.
Oh,
if you would like. So starting on April 6th, the council and planning commission will be meeting in a hybrid fashion. So we will have the council chambers and the Doll conference room in City Hall open for people to attend in person if they desire. That goes for commissioners and staff and the general public. So we'll have a mix of people attending in person and virtually. There will be a limited seating capacity in both of those rooms. So we're going to cut capacity down, I think it's in half. So we'll basically remove every other chair in both of those rooms. We'll project everything that's happening in the council chambers into the Doll conference room so people can still participate from the second.
we'll be in the chambers.
Yep, so we'll be in the chambers again. We will also be requiring masks. So at least for as long as we can, we'll be requiring masks for those meetings. So plan for that if and when you come to attend. But don't feel necessarily like you are required to attend in person quite yet. We haven't gotten to that point. But our assistant city manager, Matt Dahl, is working on policy updates for the rest of the summer and the rest of the year. For now, we're going to do these hybrid meetings at least through May, and then we'll see what happens after May. But yeah, so the meetings will still start at 6, just like we have been doing all this year at least. So if you do attend in person, make sure to come at least a few minutes early so we can assure that everything is set up. And we'll need to be working closely with IT to make sure that everything's available for folks. And then the public is also welcome to attend those meetings in person, as long as they wear a mask and maintain that social distance. So
Alex, even though there won't be a mask mandate, Midvale City's continuing that?
we are, so the council meeting on the 6th, there will still be a mask mandate in place. Our city attorney's office is looking into our options to continue the mandate after the 10th when the statewide one expires. Garrett, did you want to add anything else on that topic?
So at this point, the city, for people coming into the city building, the city intends to follow the CDC's guidance. There's not going to be a citywide mask mandate, but for OSHA concerns and liability reasons, the cities would prefer to protect itself by requiring masks and following the CDC's guidance at this time.
I'll be sure and follow the CDC guidance since we can't even go to school. That seems brilliant.
Well, you know, I'll just throw this in. Our business, we have decided that even when the mandate isn't a demanded thing, that we're going to still, with our operators and clients, we're still going to have everybody wearing masks.
I think you'll find a lot of places will still do that.
Yeah.
They will be.
So yeah, plan on a mask, plan on social distancing. Attend virtually if you are more comfortable doing so in the meantime. But yeah, we'll have that option available for you in that next meeting.
Good. I'm glad.
Thank you.
I don't think Bart and I have been there in person, so
Yeah, I think
Be together.
you guys came on in like what, last spring, last summer?
I think our first meetings was right when it went virtual.
Yeah, it's been a year.
Wow.
Mhm.
Glide Dub's not to sit by anybody.
Yeah, I think we'll have to figure out how to space people up on the dais. So we might, I'm not entirely certain how we're going to do that yet because the commission is larger than the city council. So we'll probably space out the commissioners as much as possible and pull staff off of the dais so that there's more room. But we still have to work out some of those details. And so it might be a little bit ramshackly, like our first electronic meetings were last year. We'll be having that same sort of learning curve when we get back.
Do it.
So
At least I want my packet.
would it be helpful for you to know in advance who's coming and who's not?
Yeah, if you can tell me, well, if you can tell Kate really like
Okay.
day of, if you anticipate coming, that would be real helpful so she can make sure that the room's set up correctly for everybody that will be there.
Hey,
Like I said, I won't be here on the next meeting, so I'll miss all of the fun learning experiences that everybody will have, but I'll be back for the next one after that, whenever that is.
All right.
I don't even trust myself with myself. I wear the mask when I'm alone.
he's one of those that wears it in his car by himself. Hey, let's make a motion to adjourn. Does anybody want to?
Make a motion to adjourn at, is it 8:05?
Yep. I'll
Right.
second.
Okay.
Thanks for toughing it out with me tonight.
Great,
Good
thanks
job,
everybody.
Bob.
Karen.
Good job, Robin. Good job, Robin. Good
Thanks.
job.
I get a star.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.